I suppose for many British people, the idea of moving to France is a romantic dream. And so it was for me for many years. And then suddenly Brexit came along and I actually had to make a choice because I was going to lose the ability to work as an architect in France unless I actually moved and registered myself as an architect here. I lived out in the country in England and I wanted to do something different when I moved to France. So I decided to live in a little town. I wanted to be near shops, near the market, somewhere I could go out in the morning and get a coffee and a croissant for breakfast, shake hands with all the other people in the bar, those traditional things that happen in France. That was the sort of life I wanted. Moving to a foreign country isn't just about sunny days. You've also got to think about grey days in November when it's freezing cold and most of the bars and restaurants in the town are shut. Bonjour, un café à manger, s'il vous plaît. Ah. Merci. Avec plaisir. When I made the first video in this series and I explained that what I was trying to do was to improve the thermal performance of my old house in order to address climate change, there were quite a lot of comments from people telling me that climate change was a scam. Well, it isn't a scam. It is the scientific consensus, and what I defy anyone who disagrees with that to do is to find me a single scientific paper that challenges it or that proves it is false, because there aren't any. It's been known about really now for 100 years and there absolutely isn't any question of doubt about it. Climate change is the greatest problem of our age. It is the existential crisis that we must confront. So, what we're trying to do here, you may remember, is to insulate the walls of this old stone house on the inside to improve its thermal performance, but we don't want to do it the normal way with battens and soft insulation and then plasterboard. So what we're going to do is to spray hemp insulation on the walls from the inside, and we were going to do that with clay argile, which I explained in my last video, but it's now cold and damp and wintry here in Brittany, so we've changed our minds and it's now going to be chaud chanvre, so it's lime and hemp splattered on the walls, and so that's what's happening. And it's all a bit scary because I've read about this, I know about this solution, but I've never ever seen it done. And so here it is being done in my house, and there's people all over, passing things out of windows, lots of big machinery. This is all because I believe that the way we must save the planet is to address the energy performance of old buildings. All sorts of things are being done which are quick and cheap, but which really are not good for the buildings. And our aim here is to use materials which are respectful to the original building. We had this unfortunate thing that we discovered that we don't have enough electricity in the house to run the machines. Because we only have a temporary electricity supply while the building is being worked on. So this is what we've done instead. There is a cable running up the footpath all the way past the house next door and then into the cat flap of the house after that, where it connects to their electricity. These helpful neighbours came to my assistance when I said, well, can we use their electricity? Never met them before, but I have met them now. Lots of pipes coming out of the windows. And it's just as bad inside. There's pipes running all the way up the stairs. When I was a young architect, I liked buildings that were original, where everything was particular, every single detail was specific to the building. Mackintosh at the art school in Glasgow, a typical example. Every single thing is done in a creative and different way. The problem is, as you get older and worn down by life, you realise there are problems with originality. Every single time you do something that's different, it upsets everyone involved in the building process. And so if you decide to apply some clever hemp lime insulation to the wall, you're upsetting all the subcontractors, because what we're doing here is weird and no one really understands it, and so no one can price it accurately. So what's happening here, and all the way around this room, I have put on a horizontal timber fastened to the wall, and the idea is that below that there will be an OSB plinth, and all the electrics will be behind that, and all the plug sockets will be in that, and the connections to electric radiators, and if there are wet radiators in the future with hot water pipes, that can all run in there. And as no one really understands what I want, it ends up being me having to fabricate the plinth. The other thing I have to think about is every single thing that I want to fasten to the wall has to have something secure to be fixed into, because the insulation is far too soft. And so where I want kitchen shelves, for instance, there have to be vertical uprights put onto the wall that I can use to fix into. Some of us are trying to work with all this noise, so I've had to set up a temporary office here. This is one of the things about doing work on a building. It's so disruptive. We're going to talk about the importance of hemp. It's really good at locking in CO2, grows so quickly. Better than trees. What you should be doing, if you want to save the planet, is planting hemp. And hemp is, of course, funnily enough, cannabis. Cannabis is going to save the planet. We've got hemp, and hemp's really good because it grows quickly and locks up lots of carbon in its growth. But the lime is very interesting, because lime is basically limestone. You take limestone and you grind it up and you heat it up, and then it's a bit complicated, but you then chuck it in water And you end up with something that absorbs CO2 from the atmosphere, and it absorbs as much CO2 as was produced by its manufacture. And so lime is effectively carbon neutral. And obviously, if you're one of these people who thinks that we can keep throwing CO2 into the atmosphere with never a care in the world, you'll think, well, that's a bit pointless. But for the rest of us, for the scientific community, and for me, the use of lime is really important. But there is another really good reason for using lime, and that's that it breathes. If the wall gets damp, the lime will allow it to breathe out. It is actually quite soft, so it allows the wall to move, so you don't get great big cracks. Typically, if you see cracks in a render, it's because it's a cement render. Until really the Second World War, lime was used everywhere in building. And then for a couple of generations, it was virtually forgotten. And we've been having to relearn how to use it.
Wow. Crumbs, it is dark, isn't it? Wow. God, there's so much on the floor.
It smells like a barn, doesn't it? A number of years ago, I restored this half-timbered house in the Cotswolds, and there at the rear there was a gable that was completely uninsulated, and we insulated it by adding insulation to the outside and then rendering over the top. This is a really effective solution if you have a rendered building, and some of you have asked why I didn't do it in France. And this is the reason, because my house is straight onto the street and I can't put external insulation on. This is the north wall of my house, facing onto this open space, look just here. So this is a really good place to put external insulation, but none of this needs to be done for the moment. Le problème, même certainement pour les bâtiments. Ask Charles of Insulating why he recommended the hemp lime insulation system. Parce que la méthode normale de nos jours. Because the modern system to insulate a wall like that would be to have some steel studs with fiberglass insulation in between, and then line it with a layer of plasterboard. Métal et après le placo.
Ouais. Pour moi, c'est pas pertinent par rapport à des murs en pierre. Ouais. Moi, j'aime bien que ça fasse. Du coup, ça fait un gros bloc en fait. On change pas l'aspect de la maison. On avait un gros mur en pierre avant. Et puis on a un enduit d'un côté, et puis il y aura un enduit respirant de l'autre, comme tu avais prévu de faire aussi. Ouais. Comme ça, le mur il respire.
Exactement.
Et donc du coup, la vapeur d'eau, elle est plutôt que d'être bloquée, elle est captée, puis après elle est diffusée au fur et à mesure, aller vers l'extérieur de la maison en fait.
Ouais.
Je trouve que c'est une approche qui respecte bien la construction pierre.
Ouais.
Parce que ça permet de gérer l'humidité de les parois. Il n'y a pas de risque de point de rosée entre l'isolant et la maçonnerie.
Ask Charles to explain why we had changed our minds about using a clay hemp insulation on the walls rather than the lime hemp we eventually selected.
Ça arrive tard dans l'année, du coup le chantier, pour toi comme moi, on était prêts mais que maintenant pour faire le chantier. Donc ça me paraissait délicat de faire à base d'argile parce que l'argile elle fait que sécher. Il n'y a pas de prise hydraulique.
Exactement.
Il n'y a pas de bilan hydraulique.
Parce que ça marche avec le carbone dioxyde dans l'air, n'est-ce pas? Ça marche.
Elle est pertinente pour le passage avec la machine parce qu'on ne met pas beaucoup de chaud.
Ouais.
Donc là, le mélange, il est très peu dense, il doit être aux alentours de 250 km3, c'est très isolant en fait. Et puis il y a deux autres choses que j'ai pas dites par rapport aux avantages au change. La première, c'est d'un point de vue thermique, c'est-à-dire qu'on a vu comment ça gère l'humidité de l'air ambiant, donc ça veut toujours établir un équilibre. Il y a un autre aspect qui est, on appelle ça l'effusivité, c'est-à-dire que la température de surface de la paroi, elle est chaude en fait. Donc par rapport à un mur en pierre qui lui va être froid, donc nous quand on se déplace dans la pièce, le corps il interagit avec les parois et donc du coup la température de confort, la température ressentie, on va avoir besoin de moins chauffer en température l'air
Oui, oui.
pour avoir la même sensation de confort.
Oui,
Parce que
oui.
les murs nous donnent de la chaleur, nous donnent de
Exact.
l'énergie, quoi.
Yes.
Donc dès que tu vas chauffer avec ton poêle, assez rapidement, les parois vont se mettre à te restituer de l'énergie.
Oui, oui, oui.
Donc ça, c'est bénéfique.
Exact.
Hard working so you can be deserving of the rest that you are given. You gotta slow down and look around you, son. Give a lot and live a little. Work with what you got. Where you're going, you can rest your head. Where you're going, brightness looks big. Where you're going, truth cannot be hidden. You gotta get going. Easy now. You gotta get going. Easy now. Get along, give a hand, sleep heavy, be the man. Just there, where you are, do something, be the star. You gotta get going. Easy now, you gotta